Introduction. One day, a person woke up from his sleep and he saw something he'd never seen before. He saw that his arms turned red. He ignored it, thinking it was nothing that could affect him, and he decided to continue his day. As the day progressed, he started losing the sensation of his arms. As his arms slowly got numb, he noticed the temperature increasing. As he continued his day, the increase in temperature started causing the skin in his arm to peel. This made him panic. This person's name was John Clare. John Clare was a man who enjoyed spending his time in a homemade science lab where he would do experiments beyond his capabilities. He grew up without any siblings. He had a loving mom and his dad. His dad was a well-known scientist. His dad's name was Frank Smith. Frank Smith was a well-known scientist because he helped with so many experiments around the globe. Frank was never at home. He always traveled around the world trying to contribute to science. In place of Frank, John's uncle, Dave, was the father figure in his life. Frank had died after getting burnt alive during one of his experiments in Malibu. John wasn't really saddened by his father's death because he barely had spent any time with his father. But John inherited his father's trait. Despite the way his father died, John loved spending time mixing different chemicals and seeing how they changed. John had a curious mind and he always did anything to help his curiosity. Chapter 1. John Clare. One day, John wakes up and he goes to brush his teeth. He looks down and he notices that his arms were red. John thought that this wasn't something serious and ignored it. John works as a manager in a fast food restaurant. As he drives his way there, he notices that his hands were slowly feeling numb. John ignored it, thinking that it was the cold weather outside, and he didn't wear gloves. So John made a stop at a gas station and got a new pair of gloves. The gloves helped him gain back the sensation of his arms. After John reached his workplace, he met his colleagues and his best friend, Katie. Katie was John's high school classmate. Ever since Katie and John met, they were inseparable. They always were together, helping each other, playing together, etc. But as John grew up, he had to switch schools, and he lost his best friend. They stayed in contact, but they weren't as close as they were before. So when John was in his last year of college and he'd been promoted to a manager, he decided to offer a job to Katie because she didn't have a job and was searching for one for a while. John was happy to see Katie when he reached his workplace because she was the only friend he had that he could trust. After John reached his workplace, he realized that he forgot to call his mother. John usually called his mother before getting to work to check on her health. John's mother was battling cancer, and John loved his mother and was the only person who could take care of her. John quickly pulled out his phone and dialed his mother's number. After a brief talk with his mother, John was relieved. John continued his day as usual, doing his job. When his shift ended, John said bye to his colleagues, including Katie, and he walked out his workplace and got into his car. Chapter 2. Family Dinner. When he got into his car, he realized that he didn't remove his gloves, so he decided to take it off. When he took it off, he realized there was something wrong. He sped to the nearest hospital. Turned out, John's skin was peeling. When the doctor saw this, they didn't have any explanation to this. John's arm started heating up again, but as it heated, the skin quickly healed. John asked the doctors if they knew anything about what's happening to him, but they had no idea. John was recommended to stay at the hospital for a few checkups, but he refused because his uncle Dave was waiting to meet him at Dave's home. Dave was John's uncle, but also John's father figure. But as John grew older, he grew distant with Dave. But this day, he was excited to meet Dave because they had plans of going out and having a family dinner. Dave was married to his wife, Emily. Emily was a homemaker and she had 2 kids of her own. Those kids are now grown up and they are in a foreign country. When John reached his uncle's home, they all got ready and drove to the hospital John's mom was in. John was happy to see his mom's face after a while. John told his mom about his hands peeling and heating up. His mom found this strange and asked them if the doctors told anything. John decided not to talk about this topic anymore because after all, they're here for a family dinner. John sat near his mother's bed while his uncle and aunt sat to the other side of the bed. They had ordered dinner so that all of them can eat together. John's mother's name was Mary Clare. John's mother was the person who stayed with John along with his uncle when John needed any help. When John was 8, his mother was diagnosed with cancer and she's been battling it ever since. John's age is 22 now and he lives alone. This night was special to John because he hadn't had a dinner with his mother for a few months. John was busy with his college and his job and didn't have time to meet his mom. And whenever he did, his uncles and aunts wouldn't be free. But today, they're all together, eating this dinner and chatting. While eating, Mary brought up the topic regarding John's condition. Mary asked John if he was okay and if the arms bothered him. John's uncle asked about the condition and Mary explained everything to him. John's uncle was in shock. This wasn't the first time he heard this. John's uncle remembered of that one time his younger brother Frank told him something regarding this. But John's uncle stayed quiet and acted like he didn't know anything. Chapter 3. Red Hands. On his way back home, John noticed that his arms were getting hotter and hotter, and he could feel the heat. John suddenly stopped his car, got out and called the cops. John was panicking. He was scared if he was gonna die. What he noticed was he couldn't feel his arms, but he could feel the heat throughout the body. When the cops arrived, they analyzed the situation and called the paramedics. The paramedics put John on a stretcher and took him to the hospital where they admitted him. They injected saline into John's body, and the more they injected, the worse it got. John was in the hospital for a few days until his uncle visited. His uncle came to check up on John. When his uncle saw John, he got scared. John's uncle now knows exactly what happened to John. When John was born, John's father did this experiment that required to burn animal skin. This was an unofficial experiment, so he did it in his lab. John's father wanted to make human skin show resistance against heat. This experiment failed utterly, but instead of creating resistivity, he got something better. He found a way to control heat. John's father mistakenly created a way to control heat, but he didn't want to use it. He kept it a secret. A few years later, he told his brother Dave, because Frank knew if there were anyone who he could trust, it would be Dave. John's father didn't intend to grant anyone this supernatural ability, so he hid it. No one knew where it was, but now Dave is here, seeing John clearly handling heat on his hand. There's nothing he can think about other than Frank's experiment. Frank told Dave that he learned how to control heat and made a book describing it because it was too hard for him to remember. Dave didn't enter John's room. He was too scared to get near him. Dave told John that he'd be right back and left. Chapter 4. John on Loose. Dave went straight to Frank's lab. Dave wanted to find the book about the power. Dave searched everywhere but he couldn't find it, so Dave went to check back on John. When he reached, he was surprised to see John gone. The hospital discharged him. Dave was terrified. He ran up to the nurses nearby and asked them about John. When the nurses told him that John was discharged, Dave felt a rush of adrenaline down his spine because he remembered that Frank told him if the person achieved this power, the power would overtake the person's mind and will take control of them, unless if they know how to tolerate it. Dave didn't care about anything in this moment. He ran straight to his car and drove around the block trying to find John. Dave called his wife Emily and asked her if John came by just to make sure. At that moment, Emily heard a knock on her door. Dave asked Emily who it was. Emily said it was John. Dave told Emily not to open the door and to hide somewhere safe. That's when he heard the loud sound on the phone. Emily screamed,
"He broke the door."
As soon as Dave heard this, he sped up to his house and called for the cops to come. When Dave reached, he saw his house on fire, and he saw Emily scared for her life but safe. Turns out, John didn't do anything to Emily. The conditions started taking over John's mind, and it was what broke the door. In this moment, Dave knew that John was dangerous. He told Emily to stay with the police, and Dave went around finding John. He eventually found John by the lake, trying to get rid of the fire on his hands. John was screaming,
"Get off me!"
When Dave saw this, he knew that John was in control this time. So he approached John and told him to calm down. He asked John if he was okay. John replied,
"Why are my hands on fire?"
Dave told John that he should stay calm and try to fight this power. John didn't understand anything. John asked Dave,
"What do you mean, fight this power?"
This is when Dave realized that John's power didn't show itself to his inner body. It's only in his outer body. Frank told Dave that it takes time for the inner body to get taken over. It begins with the outer body and can be prevented by wearing plastic gloves. But this is when Dave realized that John couldn't do anything to his body other than speak and express his thoughts. Dave told John to wait and rush to the nearest grocery and got a pair of gloves. But when he returned, he saw the trees around the lake were burning and John was again gone. Chapter 5. Betrayed. Dave got right back in his car and went around the lake to see if John was around. Dave called the fire department to come and put out the fire. That's when Dave spotted John. John was running away from the lake. Dave sped up to John and stopped right in front of John. Dave got out of his car and tackled John down. He told John to keep calm and put the gloves on John's hand. Suddenly, John didn't try to resist. John felt calm. John could control his body again. John calmly said,
"Uncle, I can move now."
Dave realized that the gloves helped John regain the ability to move. Dave then sat John in his car and explained everything to John. John was left speechless. John had no idea that his dad would do something like this, and he never knew something like this existed. John asked Dave if he had any idea of how long it would take for the power to take over. Dave told John that he had no idea, but John should practice taking over his power. After this conversation, John offered Dave to come to his house since John burned down Dave's house. Dave said he would first go to the police station to get Emily and then he would come to John's house. John agreed and asked Dave if he could drop him home. Dave agreed and drove to John's home and dropped him. John was tired, so he got out of the car and headed straight to his bedroom. He wanted sleep. Once John got into his bed, he was fast asleep. An hour later, he heard his doorbell ring. He figured it was Dave, so he went up to the door and opened it. Turns out, it wasn't Dave, but it was two police officers. They were here to question John. John asked them why they were here, but they didn't give him any answer. They took him to the police station for questioning. When John got there, he could see Dave and his wife standing there as they took John to the interrogation room. John realized that Dave and his wife turned on him and reported him to the authorities. Chapter 6. Danger. John was heartbroken. He trusted Dave his entire life, and here, Dave is turning on John. John realized he was all alone. When he entered the interrogation room, the police did not waste any time. They got to work immediately. They asked him about how the fire started and who started it. John couldn't answer anything and kept stuttering because he had no idea. The police had no evidence to put John behind bars, so they let him go. All the while, John had his gloves on. When John left the police station, he made sure not to get close to Dave. John thought about whom he could trust, and it clicked. Katie and John were very close, and both of them always shared their secrets to each other. So John called Katie to his house and explained everything to her. Katie was in disbelief, but she told John that she would keep this a secret. John then explained to Katie about the cure and that his dad hid it somewhere. This is when John felt a sharp pain in his arms. He didn't want to open the gloves, but the pain got so bad to the point that he was forced to open it. When he opened it, he saw his skin peeling again. This is when John realized that using gloves has its downsides. It was limited protection. John couldn't put back his gloves because his arms were in severe pain. In this moment, John's outer body took control. John screamed for Katie to run away. John's outer body then proceeded to burn down his house, and then continued burning down his neighbor's house. Chapter 7. On the Run. When his outer body calmed down, John slid his gloves right back. John realized that he can't stay in public. CCTV cameras had caught John burning down houses, and now he's wanted. John immediately packed up things and went into hiding. John's dad had an underground bunker only John's family knew about, and his dad had it because he believed that one day a meteor will hit Earth and it'll destroy mankind. And John's dad didn't like the idea of that, so he made a huge underground bunker and stored years worth of food. John quickly got into a cab and got to a walking distance from the bunker because he didn't want to disclose its location. Once he got out of the cab, he acted like he was going the opposite direction to confuse the cab driver. Then, once the cab left, John rushed straight to the nearest shop and bought weeks worth of burner phones, and then he rushed to the bunker and got inside. John was now cut off from all human physical contact. John lived in this bunker alone for weeks. Over time, he slowly started to learn how to control his powers. He'd call his mom and Katie every week to check on them using burner phones. John's mom would ask him about the news headlines and why are they about him, and John would just say it's nothing, and always told her to focus on her health. Over time, the powers slowly started affecting John's inner body, but by this time, John learned how to tolerate with his outer body, so tolerating his inner body would be easier. Chapter 8. The Truth. One day, John was practicing his powers. He suddenly heard the bunker door open. John's heartbeat started racing. John slowly got near the door before the person could climb down, so he could sneak attack the person. In his attempt to sneak attack, John failed. Turns out, the person who came was Dave. But this time, Dave looked different. When John saw Dave, he got terrified. Dave's hand was on fire, and his eyes were red. Dave started talking.
Hello, nephew. Remember me?
Uncle, what happened to you?
You still didn't realize who I am.
What?
I didn't come down here for months because I wanted to give you time to realize, and yet you didn't. I am disappointed.
Realize what, Uncle?
The abilities I have are the exact same one that you have. The neighbor's house that burned down wasn't you. It was me. I burned those houses down.
But why?
Let me tell you this, kid. Life is never fair. Your dad didn't discover anything. He was always credited for my work. I always did the work, and your dad would present it. I never got appreciated.
Why are you attacking me?
I am the person who killed your father. He didn't die of any accident. I am the person who gave you this power, and I want you to join me as I take over this crooked world.
You killed my father? And now you want me to join you? No, I'm not joining you.
Listen, child. I know how you feel right now, but I'm sorry. You don't have a choice. It's either you join me or you die.
John suddenly got a surge of adrenaline and shot a fireball right at Dave. Dave dodged it.
So, this is how you want to do it? Fine.
Dave shot a fireball right back at John. John got hit in the chest, but his powers had defensive abilities, so nothing happened to John except for a little bit of fatigue. John decided to slowly get close to the door while distracting Dave and to run away, so John started asking questions to tip Dave off.
Why do you think this is right?
Why would you understand? You're still a kid.
Tell me why.
John reaches near the ladder.
You'll soon learn, child.
John quickly started climbing the ladder and reaches the top. Then he shuts the door of the bunker and locks it from the outside. Chapter 9. Best Friend. John then realized that he was still wanted by the authorities. He quickly dialed Katie's number and asked her to help him. John gave Katie his address and told her to come as soon as possible. Katie sped up to the address. John quickly jumped in her car and asked Katie to speed up. John then frantically explained the situation. After hearing this, Katie allowed John to stay in her house. John wondered that Dave might come and try to find John, but Katie was prepared. Katie's dad was a hunter, so Katie had a lot of weapons in her home. Once John entered Katie's home, he felt deja vu. It felt like John had already been here. John shook it off because lately deja vu became common to John since he experienced it almost every day. Katie then showed John the room he'd be staying in. Katie had extra bedrooms. John thanked Katie and asked her if there was any food. John hadn't eaten food from the outside for weeks. Katie told John that she'd quickly cook something for him. John thanked her and then sat down on the bed. John kept rethinking about what happened. He questioned as to why his father would do something like this. Then John decided he shouldn't stress himself thinking about this. John then asked Katie for her cell phone so that he could talk to his mother. After a brief conversation with his mother, John felt a little better. This is when Katie called John to the dinner table. John then walked up to the table and sat down. He never thought he'd be this excited to see food. Without wasting any time, John got right to eating. Katie was looking at John as he was devouring the chicken soup that she made. Katie slowly came close to John and sat next to him. She asked John how he felt. John thanked her once again for the food and complimented her cooking. Then Katie and John had a moment in which everything went silent and they had eye contact. Chapter 10. Abilities. Suddenly, John heard someone screaming outside. John ran out to see what happened. He saw a girl getting chased by a robber. John quickly put up his hood from the jacket he was wearing and slowly got behind the robber. When the robber turned around to see John, he didn't get any time to think. John landed a nasty punch on the robber's face and then used the fire ability. The ability John used allowed him to make robber feel excruciating burning sensation with their body without anything physically happening to them. John never used this ability on a person before. He tried it on the rats in the bunker previously, but seeing this, John was surprised. He thought this ability was really good for stopping crimes. John suddenly got a vision. In the vision, he saw himself getting killed by Dave. John was terrified. He was confused as to why he got that vision randomly. When John got back to Katie's home, she asked him about what happened. John explained about the robber. Then John told Katie about the vision he saw. Katie told John to calm down and it was all just John being paranoid. John tried to explain to Katie about how clear the vision was. It was like it just happened. Katie told John to get some rest because maybe he's hallucinating. John agreed with Katie and went to bed. When John woke up, he saw Katie was sleeping next to him in the same bed. John didn't notice this the night prior because he was fast asleep. John shook it off thinking maybe Katie was scared after hearing about his vision and learning who Dave really was. Chapter 11. Truths. John thought deep and well if he could go and meet Dave. John wanted answers as to why his dad became a person like this. John then slowly got out of his bed, making sure Katie doesn't wake up, and then changed his clothes. Then John left the house. It was another snowy day, and John didn't feel any cold. Ever since he learned how to control his power, he never felt cold. John slowly adapted to living in a hot temperature. John put on his hoodie and a mask because he was still wanted by the police. Then, John got into Katie's car and drove to the bunker. John didn't want to fight Dave. He wanted to talk. Dave was still locked in the bunker. The bunker door was strong and blast-proof. Only way to get in and out is if you open the door with the key. Dave had a key, but Dave's key couldn't be put in because John blocked the keyhole with another key. When John reached the bunker, he saw a figure running past him in the corner of his eye. John didn't think much of it. But John wasn't going to open the bunker when someone was around. Then, John felt a sharp pain behind his head and then went unconscious. When John woke up, he was inside the bunker. He was tied up. Beside him was Dave, who was also tied up. John was confused. If Dave was here, then who did this? Then came a man who had a striking resemblance to John. The person started speaking.
Hello, younger self.
Younger self?
Not you, old hag. I'm talking to John.
What do you mean, younger self?
I am you from the future.
I laughed. Can you let me go now?
John clearly wasn't taking the situation seriously.
I didn't know I was this stubborn.
If you're him, prove it.
You shut up. You don't have any right to speak.
Okay, older self. Prove it to me that you're me.
I know something only you know.
And what could that be?
You love Katie.
What?
Remember when you were in high school and wanted to ask Katie out to prom, but you were too nervous to do it, so you didn't go to prom.
How do you know that?
I am you.
Even if you're me, why would you be here? And how?
That's something I can only talk to you personally. However, Dave knows how I'm here.
Dave? How does he know?
Ask him for yourself.
How did you find it?
I spent years searching all around. It was not easy, but I had a dream, and my dad told me where it was.
What machine?
Our uncle here made a time-traveling machine and hid it from everyone. When our dad found about it, he got mad and killed him.
A time-traveling machine? My father died because of a time-traveling machine?
Not only did he kill him, but he also went on to set up an entire fire in his lab to make it look like he died accidentally.
Kill him. Now.
The problem is, I can't really kill anyone. If I do, my entire timeline changes, and then I'd never even be here right now. I want to talk to you, personally.
What's so much of a secret that you had to hide it from me?
If I ever hear any other word from your tongue, I'll cut it off.
Can you at least untie me first?
How do I know you won't try anything stupid?
I won't hurt my future self. You can trust me.
Okay, I'll trust you. Remember, I'm way powerful than you. So if you try anything stupid, I won't hesitate to take you down, even if it means breaking my timeline.
So, what? You're just gonna leave me here?
Chapter 12. Help.
This feels nostalgic.
Damn, man. Is you that old?
I'm only 45.
That is crazy.
Don't have to be loud.
And then they took a walk towards the nearest cafe and sat down.
So, what did you want to talk about again?
Listen, Dave is really dangerous. I came to this timeline because I was in a battle with him and I almost died.
What? So that was the vision I saw?
I don't know, but I've used my one time travel chance. Everyone gets one chance, back and forth.
Why did he use it to come here?
I wanted to warn you. I don't have much time left. I'll be gone by this evening.
What can I do now?
I'll tell you where the time machine is. I want you to go back in time and talk to Dad. He knows how to stop this.
How would that be?
I want you to ask him for the cure against the powers.
But didn't Dave create the powers?
Dave created the power, but Father created the cure against it.
Oh. So you want me to go back in time to stop this?
Yes, I want you to go back in time and get the cure and come back.
I'll do it.
I didn't know you would agree this easily. I prepared a whole speech.
As long as it allows me to stay with Katie, and from there, I'll do it.
I suggest you make a move on Katie. She likes you too.
Wait, really? Can you tell me what happens in the future?
Sorry, but I can't. Maybe it'll change when you know the outcome. All I can tell you is confessing to her and see how it goes.
Okay, I'll do it. So, when will I have to go to the time machine?
It's located in the backyard of our childhood home. That room was always closed, and Dad called it the storage room. Wasn't a storage room. Inside the room, there's a secret entrance. The entrance will be opened if you do these exact things. Turn the light on and off 3 times. Stomp on the floor 3 times and clap 3 times.
Oh, that is why I always heard the light switch turn on and off every day.
Before going, I wanted to ask, how's Mom doing?
She's well and in the hospital.
That's good. I'll have to go now. I have work to do.
Thank you for warning me. I promise I won't fail you.
Chapter 13. Disclosing. Future John then got up and left the cafe. John immediately called Katie and told her that he took her car and he'd be back soon. Then John walked up to the bunker and made sure it was locked. Then he went and got into Katie's car and drove off. Once he reached Katie's house, he parked her car in the garage and thought about how he'd tell her that he likes her. Right then, Katie came out and asked him what happened and why he left so quick. Katie apologized for sleeping in the same bed together, and John said it was okay. Then John took Katie inside her home and sat her down. He then explained everything about what happened. He told her that he met his future self and he must go to the past to fix this. Katie was hesitant at first, but later she encouraged him because she saw the dedication in his eyes. Katie then asked him if she could come with him. John disagreed and told her that she could drop him. Katie agreed and asked him where he was going. John told her that he'd be going after he met with his mom. John planned on meeting his mom before leaving because he didn't know what's gonna happen in the past. Katie told John she'd help sneak John inside his mother's room so he could talk to her. Then Katie and John sat down for lunch. As they were eating, John brought up about the prom. He told her he wanted to ask her to prom during high school, but he was scared if she'd reject him. Surprisingly, Katie said the same thing. Katie said that she also wanted to ask him to prom, but she was also scared. This is where John realized that his future self was right, and Katie liked him back. But John didn't know how to tell her. After eating their lunch, John told Katie he'd take rest, and after he wakes up, they'd go to the hospital, and Katie agreed. When John got to his bed, he started feeling dizzy. It's like his memory is clashing. This is when John realized that his future self returned back to his timeline. John then got into the bed and went to sleep. Chapter 14. Mother. After John woke up, he got ready and was ready to go to the hospital. He called for Katie to get ready too. John was going to wear bandages on his face to conceal his identity. Katie got ready and came to help John put bandages on his face, leaving his nose, eyes, and mouth uncovered. Then they both left the house, got into the car, and drove to the hospital. On their way there, John gave hints to Katie. He acted flirty and kept complimenting her. When they reached the hospital, John was nervous to do this. John never tried anything like this before. Katie held John's hands tightly and told him to trust her. They then walked into the hospital. Just as Katie planned, no one suspected anything. John successfully got into his mother's room and could talk to her. John was emotional. The doctors told Katie that John's mother's cancer was at its last stage and there's nothing they could do. John's mother had barely a month to live. John didn't want to leave this hospital. He wanted to stay right beside her, but now he's considered a criminal to the country and a threat. John told his mother about everything that happened and everything he's going to do. His mother always had the same reaction. She never showed any expression. She told him to do what he wanted to do and what makes him happy. John's mother gave up on his dad years ago when he didn't give her enough time. She didn't care about what he did anymore. John then kissed his mother's forehead and promised her he'd be back. Then he left the room. Looking at John's bandages, it was clear that he cried a lot. John then told Katie to drop him at his childhood home. Chapter 15. Confession. On the way there, John told Katie if anything happens to him, she shouldn't be discouraged and always keep going no matter what. When they reached, Katie came with John inside the house.
I haven't been to this place in years. I still remember everything I do.
I remember when we used to have birthday celebrations, parties. This feels nostalgic.
Okay, I don't have any time to waste. I should go to the past and come back quick.
Please, be safe.
They walk towards the storage room.
So, this is it?
Listen, Katie. I don't know if this is the right time to tell you this, but I love you.
What? John, I also wanted to tell you this for a long time. I love you too.
John and Katie make eye contact and kisses.
I'm sorry for saying it at a time like this, but if anything happens to me, please move on.
If anything happens to you, I will come and save you.
You don't have to. It's fine.
John does the secret combination and opens the door.
Please return. Bye.
I will. Bye.
Chapter 16. Mission. John then enters the secret area and sees the time machine. John immediately gets nervous, but he knows that he has to do it. John then turns on the time machine, changed the time to a week before his father died, and entered it. Suddenly, John was hit with this aura. This aura made him feel young again. John didn't want to get distracted, and he had one mission. That was to get the cure and leave. John heard noises of his younger self in the house with Dave and Emily. John remembered how they used to take care of him when he was a child, but now it's all gone. John waited until it turned dark and everyone was quiet to leave the storage area in the past. When everyone was asleep, John slowly got out of the storage room without making any noise. At this point, John was very nervous. John quickly left the house. Then, John remembered that his dad was in Malibu. John knew exactly at which lab his dad was, so he got into a cab and drove to the lab. John didn't have any plan. John wondered how he'd get the information about the cure from his father. When he reached the lab, he had no way to enter, so John trespassed into the lab and got in. When John got in, he realized that there was a lot of security guards. John still had his powers, so he used one of them. This ability allowed him to knock people out by emitting a heat energy powerful enough to pass people out. He used it against the guards and didn't alert anyone. He was being stealthy. When he reached the door of his father's room, he was nervous. He had no idea what to do. John knew he came this far not to give up at the last moment. But when John entered, he saw Dave. Turned out, Dave was setting up John's father's death. When Dave saw John, he asked him who he was. John didn't speak a word. John just ran away from the scene. Dave started chasing John. John ran away from the scene because he wanted to get Dave away from the lab. When he found a safe ground to battle Dave, he started. John shot a huge fireball at Dave. This is when Dave realized that this was John and he's not from this timeline. John started shooting fireballs here and there. Dave dodged all of it. At this time, Dave was also an amateur, so this was a fair fight. But then, John realized that if he killed Dave, it would alter the future and his timeline would change. John didn't want that, but now that Dave knows him, he's in danger. John somehow managed to escape from Dave. Now, John had another plan. This plan was to lure his dad out and trap him. John immediately got into a cab and went right back home. John then got the house phone and called his father. John pretended to be a kidnapper who kidnapped his son. John's father panicked and was going to call the cops, but John said if he heard the sirens, he'd kill his son. John's father asked him what he wanted, and John lied to him and said he wanted money. John's father said he'd bring as much money as John wanted if he left his son alone. John agreed he'd do it as soon as he sees the money. John's father then rushed to the house, and when he entered, he was knocked unconscious. John then tied up his father into the storage room. In the house, there was only young John and no one else. John then closed the door of the storage room and waited for his father to wake up. When he woke up, John didn't waste any time.
Cure? For what? Why am I here? Where is my son?
Don't worry about your son. He's fine. I want to know how to find the cure.
Cure for what?
John lights up his hands with fire.
You see this?
Impossible. How did you get this?
I am John. I am your son. I am from the future.
Son, how did you get the powers? I don't care if you're from the future.
It's a long story and I don't have time. I want the cure. Now.
No one's getting the cure unless if you have a good reason.
John then decides to make up a lie to get his father's cooperation.
In the future, I'm going insane. I'm destroying the world. There are other people with the power who's taking over the world. I want something to stop this.
How did they get the powers? Did Dave share it with them?
I don't know, but it's chaos, and I have to stop it.
John's father believed what John said and agreed to give him the cure.
The cure is hidden somewhere only I know. Tomorrow, I'll meet you in the same place.
No, I'm coming with you. I can't trust your actions.
I will allow you to come with me, only if you stay in the car.
John agreed with this. Chapter 17 Road Trip. John unties his father and both of them got into the car. Then John's father started the car and went on a long drive. All the while, John's father talked about his experiments. Then suddenly, John started pouring all his emotional hate against his father. He asked him why he couldn't spend his time with them and why he couldn't sacrifice his job for family. This made the rest of the ride quiet. After 3 hours of driving, they finally reached the area. To John, it looked like an empty desert. John's father told John to stay in the car, and John's father got out. After a while, John's father returned with 10 syringes filled with green liquid. John asked if this was the cure. John's father told him it was one of the ingredients for the cure. Turned out, there were 3 ingredients of the cure, and they were found in different areas. John was furious, but he hid his anger and kept calm. After a while, they reached a swamp. John's father got out and came back with 10 syringes of blue liquid. Then the last stop they made was a lake. John's father once again got out and came back with 10 syringes of purple liquid. After this, they drove all the way back home. This trip lasted an entire day. Then they combined the liquids and this made a muddy blue liquid, which was the cure. Finally, John has the cure in his hands. John then thanked his dad and didn't waste any time leaving the timeline. John got into the storage room, did the combination, and went right back to his timeline. Chapter 18 Return. When John returned, he saw Katie laying down in the storage room. She was waiting for him to return. John carried Katie to the car and drove back to her house. Then he carried her to her bed and went to bed himself. The next day, John knew it would be the day everything changes. John woke up and saw Katie next to him in his bed again. This time, he hugged her tightly and gave her a kiss in her forehead. John then proceeded to make breakfast for her. John waited for Katie to wake up so he could have the breakfast with her. He had the cure stored in a bag that allowed to keep it safe. When Katie woke up, John brought the breakfast to the bed. Katie was surprised to see John cook, but she was happy. She saw him safe. Then, Katie asked John about what happened in the past. John told her all about it and how he had to go on trips to get the cure. Katie was happy that he finally got his cure. John told Katie that he was going to inject it to Dave. Katie agreed with him and asked him at which time he'd be going. He told her he'd be going at the evening. He wanted to meet his mother first, so he decided to do the same thing he did last time. He covered himself in bandages, took the cure, and got ready. Katie also got ready with him. They both got to the car and drove to the hospital. When John saw his mother, he broke down. He was heartbroken. He couldn't believe he was going to lose his mother. He explained everything that happened to him when he traveled to the past. John's mother still didn't care about it, so he decided not to bring it up anymore. John stayed in the hospital for hours. Then he had to go because he had some unfinished business. Chapter 19 The Fight. John quickly left the hospital and got into the car with Katie. They then drove to the bunker. John asked Katie to stay in the car while John entered the bunker. When John entered the bunker, he was surprised to see that Dave wasn't there. Suddenly, John was hit with this huge burning sensation in his stomach. Dave shot an aggressive fireball at John. John was hit right at his stomach. By this time, John learned to cooperate with his inner and outer body, so John can fight properly. John quickly dodged the next attack Dave tried and ran right up to Dave and kicked him in the face. This kick wasn't a normal one. It was powered with strong heat and it was very swift. When John kicked Dave, Dave was unfazed. This started to worry John, but right then, at that moment, John's dad walked into the bunker. Turns out, John's dad also traveled time from the past to see what really happened. When he traveled, he quickly found out that John was wanted by the police, so he knew where John would be. When John's dad entered the bunker, Dave and John stood there shocked. Dave hated his brother, but seeing him now makes him reconsider his hate. The next moment, John and Dave was injected by the cure. Turns out, the person who they saw as John's dad was a hallucination. John planned this out very carefully. When John went back in time, he asked his dad if there was any weakness of his brother. John's dad said there was this gas that if released in a room, it'll make you hallucinate. The gas was turned into a gas bomb. John gave this gas bomb to Katie and told her if he didn't come out within 5 minutes, she should throw the bomb and inject them both. And that's exactly what Katie did. When Dave was injected, he started losing a lot of blood. This was because Dave depended on the power to keep him alive. Previously, Dave had been into multiple crashes and mysteriously survived all of them. The power was what kept him alive, so when he was injected with the cure, the healing ability worn out and made him suffer those injuries. John coughed multiple times, but he was fine. He lost his powers and his body temperature went back to normal. He felt better than ever. By this time, authorities have found out where John was. John forgot to wear gloves, and there was resemblance in his arms that identified him. Chapter 20. Human. The authorities were contacted when a nurse from the hospital saw John's arms. The authorities took a long time trying to find John. They launched a manhunt for John. Ultimately, they found the bunker. While Dave was coughing up blood and John was fine, the police raided the bunker. Katie forgot to close the entrance to the bunker. When the police saw this, they immediately arrested John, Dave, and Katie. They still didn't have any evidence against them, but they took them to the station. The police issued and got a warrant to search their houses. When the police entered Katie's house, there was nothing out of the ordinary. They searched all around for something that could be worthy of her arrest and didn't find anything. Then they went to Dave's home. In Dave's home, police found tons of chemical and a huge safe. The police cracked open the safe and found a lot of pictures. In these pictures, Dave would be showing off his abilities. The police took these pictures and marked them as evidence. They then searched the bunker and found some trace of the cure. They took pictures of the cure and marked them as evidence. Katie was free to go, but John and Dave weren't. The CCTV earlier caught John burning down his neighborhood, and that was enough evidence. John wasn't stupid. He knew that would happen, so he took the CCTV footage of the bunker and showed it to the cops. In the footage, it showed Dave playing around with his powers when he was alone in the bunker. He also had the footage of Dave confessing to killing his dad and burning down the neighborhood. Dave didn't see the cameras because they were hidden. John's father had hidden the cameras in the bunker because he believed if the meteor hit them and they were in the bunker for too long, the cameras would record their last moments. John didn't know why the cameras were hidden, but he knew they existed. John showed the tape to the police and they set John free. Dave was sentenced to life in prison for arson and first-degree murder, and John was now back to being a normal human being. Chapter 21. Roller coaster of emotions. He was happy. He could now focus on his life and Katie. John then got into Katie's car and drove to the hospital to see his mother. His mother was in terrible condition, but John understood that losing someone is natural and will eventually happen. John sat down next to his mother and spoke with her for days until she passed away. John didn't spend his last days with his mother talking about the things he did. He reminisced about the childhood memories with his mother. A few days later, a funeral was conducted for Mary Clare. She was buried in Malibu next to Frank Smith, her husband. Her epitaph was a loving mother. John gave a heartbreaking speech on her funeral, followed by Katie. John and Katie grieved together for months. After they moved on, John decided he would take the next big step in his life. He took Katie to her favorite country, Japan, and took her to her favorite place in Japan, Mount Fuji. He then got down on one knee and proposed to her. A few weeks later, they would have their wedding.
John Clare, do you take this woman to be your wife, to live together in holy matrimony, to love her, to honor her, to comfort her, and to keep her in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, for as long as you both shall live?
I do.
Katie Richards, do you take this man to be your husband, to live together in holy matrimony, to love him, to honor him, to comfort him, and to keep him in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, for as long as you both shall live.
I do.
I'd like to thank everyone who listened to this podcast. And also, I'd like to thank the cast. The narrator being Mohammad Sahil, John Clare being Sherwyn Fernandes, Katie Richards being Aayisha, Uncle Dave being Mohammed Naeem, Emily being Anna Rose, Future John being Aman Chowdary, Frank Smith being Mohammed, and Notary being Ibin Augustine. This podcast was written and directed by Mohammad Sahil. This podcast was edited by Yuuki Sato, also known as Badu49, and produced by Mohammad Sahil's Books. Thank you for listening to Mohammad Sahil's Books. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share if you enjoyed the show.